How's it going, Rogues Galley, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. Today we delve into the depths of the pits with an Azalea Blitz deck tech. Today's video is brought to you by FAB, in my opinion, the absolute premier Flesh and Blood deck building and database website. They also have stuff like, articles, spoiler reviews when spoiler season is in full motion and all that kind of stuff. I personally use this website for all of my deck builds, including today's video. So check it out in the description down below. There will be a full deck list for today's Azalea Blitz deck, and it will be at FAB. Also, if you're looking to pick up Flesh and Blood singles, definitely check out FAB Foundry. Excellent customer service, excellent pricing, shipping from the US. And if you're from Canada, check out Red Riot Games. Same kind of deal, but they are from Canada. Affiliate links all in the description down below. Also, I'm an affiliate with TCG Player, so if you're looking to pick up Flesh and Blood sealed product and you'd like to support me, check out my TCG Player link. Or, if you'd like to support me directly, check out my Patreon. All that stuff down below. But today we are talking about an Azalea Blitz deck, and this deck was actually inspired by a deck list that I saw from James White himself. He had some very interesting cards in his deck list, like Yellow Pitch, Whisper of the Oracle, and it really got me thinking. And I kind of built his deck and kind of iterated on it, and now my deck is significantly different than his version of the deck. My deck, today's video, is a very kind of hate bearsy on hit style deck. You definitely want to hit your opponent and you're going to want to debilitate them. It's going to do some sort of effect. Almost every single attack in this deck has some sort of on hit effect, and we use other cards that have on hit effects. When the deck works, it is super sweet, but Ranger is not the most let's just say competitive deck out there right now, but I still think this is a ton of fun and it is definitely worth trying out, especially if you are a fan of our girl Azalea. And some of the cards in the deck are just so good. Azalea definitely has some really good cards. So, once she gets that bump up, I think she'll be a very good deck. So yeah, without further ado, let's get talking about our Azalea Blitz deck, what I like to call Redline Ranger.
Let's kick off the deck tech by talking about our hero, Azalea. This is her young hero. She has a 4 hand size and a 20 starting life total, and she says, once per turn action, for a cost of 0, put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. If you do, put the top card of your deck face up into your arsenal. If it's an arrow card, it gains dominate until end of turn. Go again. And we want to be doing this quite often because every single attack we run in this deck is an arrow card. It's kind of part of the theme of the deck. It's all about the arrows, dominating the arrows and making sure they land a solid hit square in our opponent's face and getting those sweet on hit effects. A couple quick things to note: you do have to have a card in your arsenal to do this, and the card that you put into your arsenal from the deck has to be face up. And that's kind of important because there are some cards that care about if the card in your arsenal is face up or face down. My weapon of choice for this particular build is the red liner, and that's because we have a lot of red pitch cards in the deck. We are going full red line strategy, hence the Red Line Ranger. This card is really sweet. It's basically the same thing as Death Dealer, except it costs 0 and you don't get a draw card. So it's a once per turn action for 0. If you have no cards in your arsenal, put an arrow card from your hand face up into your arsenal and then go again. Keep in mind that it does have to be an arrow, but once again, we have, all arrows in this deck. And yeah, it's just a very sweet card, just a good way to put, arrows into our arsenal and get the bow shooting fun to begin. And yeah, like I said, I really like this one compared to Death Dealer because Death Dealer, you actually need a resource to do that. And this deck, we are very lean on the resources. Though I do include Death Dealer in the 11 equipment slots available for Blitz decks, just in case we wanted to run it. Keep in mind, for Blitz decks, you have 11 potential equipment slots to choose from when you start your game. So let's start talking about the rest of those equipment slots. Here we have a just really good card, a borderline must-have card for Ranger, the Skullbone Crosswrap. This is the Ranger Legendary equipment from Arcane Rising. As a once per turn action, turn a face-down card in your arsenal face up, opt 1, go again. And that really combos very well with Azalea's ability. So if you have a face down card in your arsenal, you can turn it face up and then opt and see if that card is an arrow, so you can kind of put the card already in your arsenal on the bottom of your deck with Azalea, and then put that arrow into your arsenal so you can get a sweet dominate. So yeah, Skullbone Crosswrap is just so good at setting up Azalea. It also has Arcane Barrier 1, which is pretty good, and Blade Break. You don't want to be defending with your Skullbone Crosswrap. You definitely want to be using that once per turn action, but you know, sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. You got to use it. But yeah, this is just a must-have. It's so good at setting up all of your turns. Just between the Redliner, the Skullbone, and Azalea, you can do a lot of arrow shenanigans just, you know, right off the bat. Next up is the legendary Fianna's Spring Tunic, both in-game and out of game, because this card, it's truly legendary. This one is the generic equipment, a legendary equipment from Welcome to Wraith and also Crucible of War. It says, at the start of your turn, if Fianna's Spring Tunic has less than 3 energy counters, you may put an energy counter on it. And then for an instant ability, remove 3 energy counters from Fianna's Spring Tunic, gain 1 resource. It also has Blade Break and 1 defense. Once again, you don't want to be defending with your Fianna's Spring Tunic, but desperate times call for desperate measures. This card is basically just a really, really good resource over time card, and that's basically what you want to be using it for. We have a lot of really, really low cost cards in the deck. Almost every single card in this deck costs 0 or 1. Does any card cost more than 1? I don't think any card costs more than 1 in this deck. So Fianna's Spring Tunic basically gets you a free card play every 3 turns. These are basically the only equipment I run for these particular slots in this deck. Every other, you know, slot is interchangeable, but I almost always run the Spring Tunic and almost always run the Crosswrap, with some exceptions. Sometimes I don't run the Tunic if I am playing against a Wizard, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. Next up are the Bullseye Bracers. These are the common Ranger equipment from Arcane Rising. It says, action, destroy Bullseye Bracers. If you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put an arrow card from your hand face up into your arsenal. It gains +1 attack until end of turn. Go again. And the Bullseye Bracers also have Arcane Barrier 1, which is really, really good, once again, for those Wizard matchups. Just a really good card. Just a really good way to slap another arrow into your arsenal for those really big combo turns. And we're going to have some really big combo turns. This is probably one of the most combo-rific decks I've ever featured on the channel. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, Bullseye Bracers, really good. Frequently makes the cut. The first 4 cards that we're going to show off are the ones that I typically run, you know, in usual matches. Next up are the Snapdragon Scalers, one of my favorite common equipment in the entire game. It's simple. Just says attack, reaction, destroy Snapdragon Scalers, target attack action with cost 1 or less, gains, go again. Just super sweet for those turns where you want to play multiple arrows in a single turn, and it doesn't cost any resources to activate. So it's just absolutely fantastic. These are the 4 equipment that I typically run in most of my matches, though, you know, we're going to go over the other ones and kind of talk about which ones I would swap out for what. So these are the Perch Grapplers. They are a Ranger-specific equipment. It says action for 2 resources, which is kind of a lot in this deck. Destroy Perch Grapplers until end of turn. Face up arrow cards played from arsenal, gain, go again. And it also has Blade Break, but it has a defense of 2, so you can defend with it if you'd like, or you can use this ability to destroy it. I like this card against really aggressive physical damage decks. That Blade Break, that 2 defense is actually pretty good. And also if you think you can go really combo-y, if you kind of want to meme or style on your opponent, because there are some turns where you can get a lot of really sweet arrow hits with the Perch Grapplers, just giving all of your arrows go again, especially if you have Endless Arrow, and we are running Endless Arrow in the deck. But, you know, typically I do like to run the Snapdragon Scalers just a little bit over the Perch Grapplers, because just being able to do it as a reaction for free is just so good. Next up are the Gambler's Gloves. It should be pretty obvious what decks you want to side the Gambler's Gloves in against. It says, whenever a hero rolls a 6-sided die, you may destroy Gambler's Gloves. If you do, that hero re-rolls the die, and it's just an arm equipment. You know, put this in against Brute decks, basically. Put this in against Brute, specifically KO. Put this in against KO, and, you know, hose them over. That's basically what this card is for. Next up is just a very simple Iron Rot Gauntlet. Put this in against very aggressive decks if you think you're going to lose really quickly to physical damage. Next up are the Bracers of Belief. I would put this one in if you think you can do a lot of damage with your own cards. So this one says, action, destroy Bracers of Belief. Reveal the top card of your deck. If you do, the next attack action card you play this turn gains +X, where X is 3 minus the pitch value of the revealed card this way. go again. And, you know, basically almost all of our cards have red pitch in the deck. There is one blue pitch card and a couple yellow pitch, but most of them have red. I typically don't play Bracers of Belief because I like the Bullseye Bracers more. Bullseye Bracers. I like the Bullseye Bracers more, but, you know, you can always put the Bracers of Belief in if you want to. And, you know, we have 11 slots here to choose from, so might as well have more options to choose from. Next up are the Rune Robes. Put these in against Wizard. That's basically it. Just put them in against Wizard. We have enough Arcane Barrier with our other stuff versus Rune Blade. Rune Robe is just when you really need a ton of Arcane Barrier. And then finally we have the Death Dealer. I typically don't run Death Dealer, but you know, it's always an option if you think you can, you know, get use of that card draw ability if you're going to be fishing for very specific cards. If you're not just like, you know, redline them, just shoot out as many arrows as possible like you want to do with the redliner. Death Dealer is more, you know, kind of choosy with the cards that you want to play because it lets you draw a card. So let's start talking about the actual 40 card deck. This giant chunk here, these are all of our attack actions and they are all arrows. We're going to start off with red in the ledger. This card is amazing. This is an Azalea specialization for a red pitch. I'm not going to say that from now on. Every single arrow in here is a red pitch. So just all of them. Red pitch across the board. All of them are red pitch. This one in particular has 5 attack and 3 defense. 1 cost, 5 attack is a very, very good rate. And it says arrows can only be played from arsenal and only if you control a bow. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to read that one again. Just arrows can only be played from arsenal, which is why you want to do all of your shenanigans to put arrows into the arsenal. And the effect on red in the ledger is very simple, but very, very powerful. If red in the ledger hits a hero, they can't play or activate more than 1 action during their next turn. This card single-handedly screws over just so many decks, man. It's so brutal. Any deck that runs something like Nimbleism or Slogism or wants to pump up a card before they actually do an attack, it's just, it's nuts. Red in the ledger is so good, an absolute must-have. This will be a staple for Azalea basically forever. We obviously run 2 of them. That's true for here on out. We run 2 of every single arrow that we are going to be talking about today. Next up is Remorseless, one of my favorite cards in the entire deck. Obviously, we are running 2 Remorselesses, and what it says, it's a 1 cost, 5 attack arrow. Once again, 1 cost, 5 attack. Very, very good with 3 defense. If Remorseless is put into your arsenal face up, until end of turn, it gains defense reactions can't be played from arsenal to Remorseless's chain link. Yo, so it makes it just that much harder to defend against. And it also says, if Remorseless hits a hero until the end of their next turn, whenever they play an action card, they lose 1 life. This is a huge deal in Blitz because you have a lower life total. So just being able to drain your opponent is so good. Most people just kind of like pass the turn or play one thing and pass, but just being able to do that is so big. And, you know, forcing them to basically give up their turn or take a lot of damage can really turn things in your favor. Red in the Ledger and Remorseless are both absolutely amazing cards, and they actually help make Azalea viable at all. Next up is Sleep Dart. Once again, 1 cost, 5 attack. It says if Sleep Dart hits a hero, they lose all hero card effects and activated abilities until the end of their next turn. Treat the hero card as if the text box is empty. This does really good things to certain heroes and basically nothing against others. So basically, like, you know, against Bravo, pretty good. Makes it so they can't do Dominate. Against Dash, it does literally nothing. So still really good. Still really good inclusion because it costs 1 to play, 5 damage. You know, 1 costs 5 damage. Really good, and it can kind of hose over certain heroes. Next up is the incredibly brutal Hamstring Shot, or as I like to call it, Hammy Shot. Hammy Shot is a 1 cost, 5 damage attack. Once again, very good. And it says, if Hammy Shot hits a hero, their first attack during their next turn costs an additional resource to play. That's so good. It can really like mess with your opponent's strategies. And it says their first attack, not attack action. So this also taxes their weapon attacks, which is really good, you know, just really good. You got to get these foil ones so you can get the shiny blood pools. Next up is another incredibly brutal card. You know, in my opinion, one of the most brutal cards in the entire game. Look, it's just going right through his eye with Headshot. Headshot is a 1 cost, 4 attack arrow, and it says, if Headshot is put into your arsenal face up, it gains +2 until end of turn. So it's basically a 1 cost +6 because we have all these ways to put it into our arsenal face up. So yeah, just absolutely fantastic. 1 cost, 6 damage, and just look at that art. It's insane. It is insane. Next up is Salvage Shot. This is a 1 cost, 5 attack arrow. If Salvage Shot hits, put it on the bottom of your deck. Super good. Just basically, this is the only way you can go to fatigue. You know, your deck can entirely run out and you can keep playing arrows, because otherwise they're just going to be gone forever. And you don't have a weapon you can keep bashing them with. We're playing Azalea. Her bow doesn't do anything by itself. So you definitely want a card like Salvage Shot so you can keep, you know, pegging at your opponent. So yeah, we definitely are running 2 Salvage Shots. Basically, you just need 2 Salvage Shots, you know, 1 to pitch, 1 to attack, and you can keep looping that every single turn when your deck is out. Next up, we have Ridge Rider Shot. This is a 0 cost, 4 attack arrow, and that's where you want to be. For 4 attack arrows, you want to have a cost of 0. This is a 0 cost, 4 attack arrow, and it says, if Ridge Rider Shot is put into your arsenal face up, once again, gonna put a lot of arrows into our arsenal face up, you get to opt 1, which is super good. It's super good for setting up Azalea to do that sweet dominate. So you can put Ridge Rider Shot into your arsenal face up. You can opt 1, and if the top card is an arrow and it's really sweet, you can use Azalea's ability to put that card into your arsenal and give it dominate. So just, you know, really good. Just, yeah, fantastic card. Next up is Endless Arrow. I really like the Endless Arrow. This is a 0 cost, 4 attack arrow, and it says, if Endless Arrow hits, put it into your hand. It's really good, dude. Just put it into your hand. So this card is a really good way to combo with certain effects. You know, effects like Perch Grapplers, which say, you know, face-up arrow cards played from arsenal gain go again. So if you have ways to keep putting Endless Arrow into your arsenal and it keeps hitting, you can keep playing it over and over again. It's not infinite because you always need a way to put it into your arsenal, and all of our ways to do so are kind of like once per turn effects. But it's still really sweet, and it helps facilitate some of our really big combo turns. Next up is Pathing Helix, a 0 cost, 4 attack arrow, and it says, if Pathing Helix hits and you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. So it's not face up. So keep in mind that it is face down, so it doesn't trigger any of these, you know, face up effects. But since it is face down, you can use it to activate your Skullbone Crosswrap, which is really sweet. So yeah, Pathing Helix, just a really good card. Another way to put something into your arsenal so you can keep firing off shots. Once again, if you are having a big turn with a card like Perch Grapplers, and we have another card main deck that I typically run that is better than Perch Grapplers, then you can have really big turns where you fire off a bunch of arrows in a single turn. So yeah, I really do like the Pathing Helix. And finally, my least favorite arrow, we have Searing Arrow. It's still pretty good though. It's a 0 cost arrow, and it says if it hits a hero, they lose 1 health, and it has attack of 4. You know, 0 cost, 4 damage, pretty good. But if it hits, it's a 0 cost, 5 damage, which is, yeah, pretty sweet. I do like it quite a bit. It's just a good damaging one, but it doesn't really synergize with our deck. The second they print another arrow that's like, if it hits, then debilitate them in some way, I'll probably be taking out the Searing Arrow for whatever that card is. But for the time being, it's in the deck. All right, this next section I'd like to call Tricky Shenanigans. We're going to kick it off with Poison the Tips. This is a 0 cost yellow pitch card with a defense of 2, and it says, until end of turn, arrows you control gain, if this hits a hero, they discard a card. And it also has reload, which is a very important mechanic. A lot of our cards from here on out are going to have reload, and it says if you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. And then this card also has go again. So remember, anytime for reload always puts it face down. So if you reload a card, you can then use your Skullbone Crosswrap to turn it up and then opt 1. So that is just very useful. Anytime you reload, you can activate your Skullbone Crosswrap. And this card just is so good, dude. It's so much fun. It's kind of it's really tricky to use, basically, because it doesn't really do anything by itself. You need to have a bunch of arrows that are hard to defend against. But if you can really pull it off, man, you can have some really sweet turns, especially if you can hit them multiple times, especially if you have Dominate on your arrow. Oh, man, it's so sweet. So we are running the 2 Poison the Tips. And then very similarly, we have Rapid Fire. And this is a card that I've alluded to already. This is a 0 cost yellow pitch card with a 2 defense value. And it says, until end of turn, arrows you control gain go again. Reload, go again. So this is like Perch Grapplers. We have Perch Grapplers, except Rapid Fire costs 0 and it gives you a reload. So really sweet. This card really helps facilitate high combo turns if you have something like the Endless Arrow in your hand, so you can play, you know, Rapid Fire, into Endless Arrow, into, slot that Endless Arrow back and down to the arsenal, fire it off, it gains go again, comes back to your hand, slap it back down into the arsenal with another effect, and just keep going. And if you can have something like Poison the Tips also going at the same time, then you got a sweet turn. You got a really sweet turn. So yeah, I really like Rapid Fire. It's what makes the deck kind of combo-y. It's very inconsistent. Like, don't get me wrong. It is very, very inconsistent, but when it works, dude, it is glorious. It is absolutely glorious. Next is Knock the Death Whistle, a card that will forever be near and dear in my heart because this was the very first preview card that Legend Story Studios gave me to, spoil for the world. And this card is actually a really, really good card. So it is a 0 cost blue pitch card. This is the only blue pitch card in the entire deck. And it says, search your deck for an arrow card, reveal it, then shuffle your deck and put it on top of your deck. So not in your hand, on top of your deck. Then it also has reload and then go again. So basically what you can do is you search your deck for a sweet arrow card, Red in the Ledger, Remorseless, slap that bad boy on top and then reload a card, then has go again. And then you play Azalea to put that card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck and then put the card that you just put on the top with Knock the Death Whistle, bam, into your arsenal with Dominate. Yeah, really, really sweet. Knock the Death Whistle. It's just a really good way to set up a very, very high power Dominate turn. And of course, we are running 2 of them. Next up, we have a small chunk of cards that just pump our arrows. This one is Take Aim. It is a 0 cost ranger action with 2 defense, and it says the next ranger attack action card you play this turn gains +3, reload, go again. So you can start your turn off by playing Take Aim, slapping a card down into the arsenal with the reload and then firing that arrow off, maybe giving it go again with another effect. Take Aim is just a really good way to set up a turn, especially if you've already kind of burned off a lot of your reload abilities, or rather abilities that let you put arrows into your arsenal. So yeah, Take Aim, just super good. So we're running the red pitch, and I'm also running the yellow pitch, and look at that foil, dude. It looks really sweet. 2 of each. And just so you know, the yellow pitch is the exact same thing, except it's just a +2 instead of the +3. And the last 2 cards for this category are Welcome to Wraith Specials. This is Nimbleism. Nimbleism is a very, very simple card. 0 cost. The next attack action card with cost 1 or less you play this turn gains +3. Go again. Just pumps up your next arrow for 3 damage with go again. Really, really good. Playing this with an arrow that you want to make sure hits, like Remorseless or Red in the Ledger, especially if it's going to have Dominate. So we are, of course, running 2 of them. And then we also run Razor Reflex. This is a generic attack reaction, and it says choose one, target sword or dagger weapon, and I'm going to stop it there because we don't care about that line. And then the second line says target attack action card with cost 1 or less gains +3, and if this hits, that attack gains go again. Just a really, really good way to give our arrows go again if they don't already have go again. Just fantastic windmill slam card in this deck. And the final cards of this deck are either utility or defensive cards. We're going to start off with Whisper of the Oracle, and this is one of the cards that I definitely kept in from James White's build, the yellow pitch Whisper of the Oracle, because I think it's actually quite good. Being able to pitch for yellow and fire off 2 arrows is really, really good, especially when most of the cards in our deck are, are redlining it. So what does Whisper of the Oracle do? It does have a 3 defense, which is pretty good. It says opt 3, which, opting just makes you look at the top card of the deck and you can choose to put it back on top or on the bottom. So really, really good for setting up Azalea plays here. So, it's good in the same way that Skullbone Crosswrap is good, except the Crosswrap can do it almost every single turn. And it has go again. So pitches for 2, lets you opt and set up really sweet turns. Also defends for 3, just an absolute slam dunk in the deck. I very much considered running the red one as well, but I wanted to be more aggressive with this deck. I wanted to have more arrows and be able to fire off, something sweet every single turn. And the arrows all have 3 defense as well, so they can, defend as well as attack. So I liked having more arrows than another Whisper of the Oracle, but, still really sweet. And then finally we have Sigil of Solace, both the red and the yellow pitch Sigil of Solace. Once again, yellow is still good for the same reasons that the yellow Whisper of the Oracle is good. Being able to play multiple arrows in a single turn is fantastic. But I think Sigil of Solace is probably the best defensive card for Blitz, hands down. The absolute best defensive card for Blitz. Why? Well, you don't know what your opponent's going to be playing. And if they play with Wizard and you have a bunch of defense reactions that pump up your, defense, and they're doing arcane damage, they're not going to do anything. You're just going to have to pitch them for their, their pitch value, and really they're not going to be as good as they could have been. Whereas the Sigil of Solace will always be good no matter what class you're playing, and it's an instant. It just gains you 3 life. The yellow gains you 2 life. You can play it on your first turn with no downsides. It's just a really, really sweet card, and like I said, it is my favorite card for defensive options in Blitz. So obviously I put the red and the yellow. And that was our Azalea Red Line Ranger on hit Hate Bear style combo-y deck. I think this deck is actually really, really sweet. It is my Ranger deck of choice for Blitz. You do have some other options when building this deck, and I did kind of pull some aside. So if you wanted to run something, more shenanigans, you can run 3 of a kind, but 3 of a kind is just super, super hard to play with. So I ended up cutting it for more consistency. But I did really want to play with my foil one too, but. And then, like I said, the red pitch Whisper the Oracle is definitely always an option if you wanted to be less aggressive, but I like being very aggressive. And then Ravenous Rabble is also an option. I don't like it in this deck. I can see people really liking Ravenous Rabble, especially the red pitch. I have my red pitch versions in another different deck. But I wanted to go all arrows. All arrow, all the time for this Azalea deck. So we can kind of put these up here for other options. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, maybe check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me directly to see more excellent deck tech videos like this. We will have another deck tech in a week or 2, though I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next. Maybe Ninja, maybe Brute, maybe even Guardian. I'm not sure. And I also have a super secret deck that I have not quite built yet that I'm just going to call Beep Boop. The deck is called Beep Boop. You can guess what it is in the comments down below, what deck Beep Boop is, but it's a tricky one. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. I'll see y'all next time for some more Flesh and Blood content. See you later.